Today we will tackle Chapter 2, Mastering How Adults Learn. In this chapter, we're going to define and explain learning, listen and explain the 3 general laws of learning, differentiate between andragogy and pedagogy, define our various learning styles, and then investigate the difference between a visual learner, an oral learner, and a kinesthetic learner, and explain how trainers can accommodate these types of learner. So, what is learning? General laws of learning define learning as a change in individuals due to the interaction of the individuals and their environment, which fills a need and makes them more capable of dealing adequately with their environment. After trainees have learned something, trainers should be able to recognize change in the trainees' behavior as well as their attitudes. Change addresses the need or reason for training. New behavior or attitude allows trainees to more effectively manage their environment. A law of learning is a statement that describes the condition that must be met in order for trainees to learn. Researcher Edward Thorndike developed a foundation for learning to enhance trainee learning. We will now review the 4 laws of learning. The first law of learning is the law of effect. The law of effect indicates that people learn best under pleasant and rewarding circumstances. We tend to want to be involved in positive situations and withdraw from situations that are unpleasant. Hence, if a professor indicates that you should bring a positive attitude to class and to turn up your positive meter, that said professor is just getting individuals prepared for the law of effect. We also think about the law of effect when it comes to our schedule, meaning we prefer classes that work better with our schedule, either if we're morning people or afternoon people. We like a best learning situation where we are provided breaks. So if you receive a break in class or you receive a break in training. And then we think about how do we make learning fun. So examples of the law of effect that we engaged in COMM 4330 would have been taking a break during the middle of training, having snacks such as cookies and candy, playing with Play-Doh or balls, stress balls, being able to doodle on our construction paper. That's all a part of the law of effect. The second law of learning that we will look at is the law of frequency. The law of frequency indicates that the more often you practice a trained behavior, the more likely you will continue using that trained behavior. This is also known as drill and practice. Generally, with the law of frequency, trainers want to make sure that their trainees are practicing the correct skills. And so we look at deep practice as the process of mindfully practicing a skill by chunking it up, meaning you break the skill into steps and you master each individual step. You repeat it after rehearsing the skill, you keep rehearsing it, and then you learn to feel it. You encourage people to practice and rehearse what needs to be done. You want your learner alert, focused, and attentive. And we can think of deep practice in ways that we potentially learn how to ride a bike, we learn how to drive, we learn how to tie a shoe, we learn how to bake cookies. There's also the +1 skill, where you learn one step at a time while adding a new step to the steps that you've already mastered. We will engage in this law of frequency, the +1 step, in this course as we learn step by step how to actually create a training. And then we have role switching. So on the first day of class, Dr. Murray actually trained everyone in the room. And then by the end of the class, once the skills have been taught, each student will have the opportunity to train. The next law is the law of association. It suggests that every new fact, idea, concept, or behavior is best learned if you can relate it to or with something that you already know. So think about how we use analogies, particularly in math and science, such as every good boy does well or every good boy likes fudge. We learn the planets, we learn the order of operations through the use of analogies, as well as comparing and contrasting with other familiar objects. So in the class, when we look at videos or we engage in in-class activities to help us become more familiar with the process. The next law of learning is the law of readiness. It suggests that learning is more likely to occur when what is being taught is something that the learner needs at this time. So for instance, it would not be imperative for you to learn how to engage in a training if you had not taken organizational communication or if you had not taken leadership, because those are classes that build upon one another and you would not be ready for this class. Generally, the law of readiness states that when the learner is mentally and physically ready to learn, you want to make sure that they are provided with the skills that are very clear. Now we will take a quick quiz question. Using analogies is an effective method for training based on the law of effect, the law of association, the law of frequency, the law of learning. Take about 3 seconds. If you indicated that it's B, the law of association, then you indeed are correct. Please make sure that you check out your textbook on page 26 to make sure that you understand where this concept came from. Next, we're going to move towards looking at andragogy versus pedagogy. Teaching and training adults is not the same as teaching and training children. Pedagogy is the science and art of teaching children. Remember that children learn for the sake of learning. Children have a limited life experience onto which they desire to build knowledge, and so they're motivated by external rewards or punishment. For instance, if you were younger, you would receive money if you earned an A or a B in school, or you would have an opportunity to maybe go play with your friends after your homework was done. That's the way children are motivated. Children are more dependent on other people for things that they do not know. And children are learning through a method of approaching each subject by subject. So for instance, you may have arithmetic first period, science second period, social studies third period, world literature fourth period. And you learn that way throughout your entire matriculation through school. When we look at andragogy, it's the science and art of teaching adults. Adult learners need to see the meaning and relationship of what they're learning to their lives and their experience. Hence, the reason why students are able to pick their own major. There are 5 different assumptions when it comes to andragogy. The first is that the adult learner is someone who has an independent self-concept and who can direct his or her own learning. In many ways, adults need this relevant training. We also look at the second item, whereas an adult learner is someone that has accumulated a reservoir of life experiences that is a rich source of learning. So we're able to think about examples in class based on our previous learned experiences. The third is that the adult learner is someone who has learning needs closely related to their changing social roles. So we think about courses that we may have taken at the beginning of our collegiate career versus the end based on our social role. And then last but not least, it's problem-centered and interested in immediate application of knowledge, and they're motivated to learn by internal factors rather than external factors. So many times adults are interested in learning based on how it will make them feel at the end of the day. So there are 5 assumptions. 1, adults need relevant training. And so throughout this course, you will create a needs assessment and participate in a needs assessment. And this document identifies what learners do not yet know or the important or necessary skills that they cannot yet perform. So the assumption was that most learners had some type of lived experience about emotions, but may not have been very familiar with emotional intelligence. You want to train employees for their in baskets, meaning what are those action items that need immediate attention? If there's conflict currently going on in the organization, how can we train individuals for conflict at this point? When working on your final project, you will indeed create a needs assessment to identify what the learners need some type of specialty in. So think about what's relevant, which brings us to number 2. Role of learners' experience. Adults bring experience to the class. You get information from trainees about how training can be immediate. Think back to our time in class where each food truck driver had an opportunity to share experience about emotions in the workplace. Acknowledge that individuals have positive experiences where maybe their food truck made them happy, or the reason why they started their food truck was directly related to a positive experience. And also remember that sometimes these experiences can be negative. The third is that adult learners tend to be self or internally motivated. And so they're motivated by increased job satisfaction, self-esteem, a sense of accomplishment, and quality of life. Take advantage of that internal motivation as a trainer. The fourth is that adult learners are self-directed and know their learning deficiencies. Make training needs-based or learning-centered. And in this course, you will hear the term needs-based and learning-centered throughout the entire class because you want to make sure that you're training individuals based on what they need. And then last but not least, there's the orientation of learning. Adult learners are task or problem-centered. Group trainees by years of experience or types of problems that they've experienced. Ask trainees to forward problems ahead of time so they can be addressed in training. Provide trainers with a bibliography or set of resources. And provide trainees with a series of training classes ranging from basic to most complex. When we return to the second set of lecture notes, we're going to look at the various learning styles. And so at this time, I want you to stop this video and take the learning styles quiz to figure out if you are a visual learner, an auditory learner, or a kinesthetic learner. Talk to you soon.